Hello, everybody. Hello and welcome. If you are here, feel free to pop in and say hi. Maybe let me know where you're from. Hello, hello, hello. Ooh, okay. People are joining. This is great. Okay. So I just wanted to do a really quick energy reading for 2025. I had actually hoped to have this prepared before 2025 started, but it kind of just is what it is. So when I do these energy readings, what I typically do is I try and tap into the energy of the collective. And so there are, because there's so many of us in different sort of energetic cohorts living in different energetic realities, I guess you could say. There's a lot of variety, so some of this may speak to you, some of it may not. Also, just to throw this out there as well, there's always multiple possibilities. The nature of trying to tap into any sort of energy is really interesting because it's kind of like if you're standing at the edge of a long winding road and there are infinite forks going off into infinite directions. And so sometimes things shift, sometimes things change. But I will say on the whole, 2025 is got a lot of crazy, wild energy, which is kind of why I'm popping on here to do this. So I'm just gonna go ahead and get right into it and talk about the fact that we're all more or less walking around living in our own individual personal realities. There is this one kind of context that we all share that we kind of call consensus reality. But I think the more that we are confronted with the ideas, beliefs, and etc. of people around the world, the more that we can see that we live in a space where multiple things can be true at the same time. Now, we also live in the same timeline, the same period of time as the internet, which has made things fucking batshit crazy insane because people tend to kind of go around trying to make their version of reality everybody's version of reality. And I think that we are doing a huge disservice to the experiential / multidimensional nature of reality by not understanding that. Our realities are very much shaped by our field, which is shaped by our shadows, our experiences, our beliefs about the world, all of that sort of thing. So the reality that I'm living in, for example, is very different than the reality I was living in, say, 10 years ago. And it's going to be very different than the reality that you're living in, or the reality that, say, somebody, I'm in Canada, say somebody in the States is living in, say somebody in Europe is living in. There's so much variation. And I think that when we neglect to really factor that in and hold it into account, we end up living in a world that is very noisy, very loud, and very chaotic. One thing that I see happening in 2025 is that this more experiential dimension of reality is going to pop into a lot more people's awareness, and we're going to have a situation where the chasm between realities is going to get larger and larger. So an illustration of this is you can scroll anywhere on the internet and you are going to see some people saying it's the end of the world. It's like the worst stuff ever is happening. And you're going to see other people saying everything's great, everything's fine, everything is expansive. All of these things get to be true at the same time for different reasons in different contexts. And one thing I see in 2025 is that there is going to be a widening of the experiential chasm between those realities, right? So what reality are you living in? What do you believe to be true? What do you wish other people believe to be true? Are you trying to force other people to live in your reality bubble? All of these sorts of things are happening. And I think that because we are so oversaturated with binaries and duality and people getting people yelling and screaming about this, that, or the other, and really moving to a space of extremes or of cognitive biases instead of actually having a measured kind of way of looking at things that really does incorporate things like discernment, that incorporates things like really understanding other people's perspectives and points of view. I think that experiential chasm is going to get bigger and bigger. So there are going to be people who have not taken the opportunities that we've been given over the last few years to learn discernment, and their experience of reality is going to become worse. They are not going to experience the same reality, say, as somebody who's remaining grounded in their power, etc. So that's something that is going to be happening. There's going to be more people coming online, I think, when it comes to getting back into their lives. So we live in a very strange context where we do have the internet, which is like this approximation of reality, but it's not actual reality. Some people tend to take it as reality and then bring it off into the real world, and then it starts to influence reality. But there really is this like two levels to this kind of phenomena or this thing. I think we are all becoming so emotionally, energetically, oversaturated with kind of getting all of these extremes, all of these opinions at the same time, that I think a lot of people are going to be activated to get back into their own lives, and look around and say, what's true for me? What's true in my world? What do I believe to be true? What are the actual concrete actions I can take to make the changes that I want to see in the world? What kind of headspace, what kind of worldview and belief system do I have to have in order to make these things happen? So for example, people who are in a state of, say, learned helplessness, that believe that everything is toxic and nothing is fixable and everything is wrong and bad and blah, 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 blah. Their experience of life is going to be felt in a way that is going to be heavier and more restrictive, and it's going to lead to more of the same, right? So they're going to see the world as worse because they're going to be experiencing the world as worse. On the other hand, there are going to be people that are going to really get back into a space of like embodiment, in the sense of really getting down deep in their own lives, in their own friendships, in their own reality, in their own practices, and really doing the work on mindset to really understand that we do have, most of us, some degree of influence over the reality that we're living in. Are our beliefs about the world true, or are they true because we believe them to be true? What are we immersing ourselves in every day? What are the things that we are feeding our brains to tell our brains, to give them the information, the data that they need to make inferences about the way things work, the kind of happiness that's possible for us, etc. So that's something that's going to be happening as well. So if you've spent the last few years really working hard on discernment, really working hard on really understanding that multiple things can be true at the same time, even to the degree of, if you don't understand them and you find them abhorrent, which there's a lot of that for me, but I can still recognize that I did not have the experiences, the upbringing, the worldview, etc., that would make it so that I can really see eye to eye with everybody, but I can recognize that they've gotten to that place regardless. Hope that makes sense. Sometimes it's hard to put these things into words. So another thing that I wanted to talk about 2025 that's going to be really crazy. So first of all, I'm not like an astrology person. I've heard the astrology for 2025 is wild. I've talked to both the Witch of Lupin Hollow, so Tanae, and then also Hannah from Suburban Witchery. I have a couple podcasts like on the docket that I haven't been able to release yet, that are going to be where we kind of touch on, like, I asked for their predictions for 2025, and I'll be releasing that part exclusively for Hot Mess Coven members. But it's really interesting because I've heard that 2025 is kind of going to be crazy just from an astrological perspective. Again, I don't do astrology, so I can't speak to that too much, but just reading the energy of it is very interesting. I think we are going to be experiencing sort of like a popping of the cork when it comes to technology that is, it's exhausting just saying it, just because when you look over the past, say, 5 or 6 years, the amounts of technological advances and things that we've had that have all of a sudden went from being maybe nothing or imagination to like boom right in our faces in our daily lives, has been enough that yes, the thought of it is even exhausting. But what's going to happen is that is going to continue. So all of a sudden, what I'm seeing is, say, in like 8 to 10 months, we are going to be seeing things that are taken for granted as like, oh, these things exist, that are at this moment might baffle us and blow our fucking minds. There's also going to be a big shift in the scientific paradigm, but it's not going to be shoved in front of our faces like it is. Okay, how do I say this? So right now, with the dissemination of information, there's a lot of really cool things happening in the realm of like science. When you look at, say, consciousness or maybe energies, things like that, they actually are doing a lot of work and research and study on this that is uncovering truly incredible things, Even the work they're doing in physics with, multiverse theories and all of that sort of thing. All of that stuff is really compelling, but it seems like unless it's actually like compiled together by some writer and then put in front of everybody in like the New York Times or the Guardian or something like that, people don't think that shift has happened. That shift is currently underway and currently happening. I think we're going to start to discover a lot more about human consciousness, because again, that's not even an energy reading thing. That's a pattern that we can see, because that research is already starting to emerge. We are going to have as part of that, we are going to have a kind of furthering of these rigid worldviews when it comes to spirituality and religion, which is, some people are going to be activated to recognize that, things are more expansive than they think. They might be exploring spirituality, but then there's other people that might be in a cohort that's more dominated by fear, that might take that and use it to push back or fight back or really justify causes that are not justifiable, in my opinion. So there's going to be, the interesting thing about 2025 is I'm seeing a splitting of reality, and we already live in split realities, but I'm seeing a splitting of reality of people who are really very much stuck in a space of fear. And that's not to say there aren't very real things that we should be fearful of. There are. But if you're in a fearful place, what is the impact? What is the action that you're going to make things better? In a fearful place, usually what happens is we don't have use of our brain. Our blood flow is put into our bodies into fight or flight. This is not a state that we need to be in to be good world builders or to be good activists or to, create the kind of change we're claiming to want to see. Now, the other part of that branch is going to, again, be people who are not so much in a fear-based state, but more in a state of like, how do I stabilize? How do I become more grounded? And how do I become the change I want to see in the world? Which is like heavily. So when I do these energy readings, when I tap into collective energy, when I notice patterns, things like that, that informs my work quite a lot, because over the past year, I started thinking to myself, like, what is the impact I want to make on the world, right? I create a lot of things. I write a lot of books. I do a lot of stuff, but what is the impact that I want to make in the world? And part of that was because of Energy Reading 2025 and seeing this divide and this chasm, and the fact that like it's just going to become more visible, more obvious than ever that we are living in multiple different realities. And really, how do we get people to a place where their actions, their desires, their values are being reflected in such a way that their life experience is getting better, and maybe we're moving the needle collectively or even in real world action. And that doesn't come from a place of yelling, fear of, making decisions or trying to make an impact from a place of like fearfulness or helplessness. I think the world really needs people to become more empowered, which is partly why, so my newest program that's starting on January 20th is a 3-month program. It's called Dystopia Rising, and it's all about integration, getting back into your body, and really trying to be diligent about the world you're trying to create and the world you want to live in, the world you want to see. So just mentioning that because that's definitely something that was heavily influenced by tapping into the collective energy and seeing what is there. So when I see 2025, the word that comes to mind, this isn't my personal word for 2025, but this is what I see. I see it as being about integration and about like boots on the ground, getting back in your own fucking life. I feel like for a lot of us, we've been learning, we've been doing, we've been like kind of collecting all this information. We've been confronted with like the chaos of the world, and we're trying to figure out where all of these pieces fit into our worldview, where all of these pieces fit when it comes to like what we want to do in the world, the impact we want to have in the world, how we want to experience the world, how much boundaries we want to have from like watching the world burn in real time, what we think is what we think is a reasonable expectation to expect from other people. Now, at the end of the day, and a lot of people don't like this, we are only responsible for ourselves, and we have to be radically responsible for ourselves. Radically responsible for ourselves. A lot of people don't like that either. So if there are, if this kind of chasm widens, we're going to see a lot more pushback if people are not living in the reality that people are trying to impose. So I think that is definitely, there's probably a more concise way of saying that, but that's the way it is. So I see this year being really about integration. So the vision that comes to mind is kind of like an absolute towering inferno, and then, somebody dancing in front of it. I'm seeing, I have a playlist that I shared with you guys before, but like a daisy in the rifle of a gun. I think things are going to continue to become more and more extreme. So if you're familiar with Terence McKenna's work, I would highly recommend looking at his final interview when he talks about novelty theory and, the transcendental object at the end of time. It feels like we are in a space, and I think a lot of that is technology and having access to all this information in real time, but it feels as if we are in a space where things are getting crazier and crazier, weirder and weirder, more and more contradictory, and our ability to hold that is going to really determine our experience of reality. Now, something interesting that can happen is that when it comes to like media or people communicating, disseminating information, the sad reality that we live in, and people aren't going to like this either. So I used to be a freelancer. I used to like write articles. I used to see what editors were looking for. Unfortunately, we live in a time where, because of the internet, because of online publications, etc., people get the more controversial, the more you can bait somebody's emotions, the more you can make them scared, the more you can make them angry, whatever, the more clicks you get. The more clicks you get, the more ad revenue you get. So we live in a world where literally setting people's nervous systems on fucking fire is financially incentivized. Even down to the level of individual content creators, the amount of people that I see that are just basically like, this is a red flag, or this is that, this is whatever. Okay, where's the fucking solution then? Like, why are we just identifying problems? There are more than enough problems. What are we going to fucking do about it? So again, this is about integration, but we need to recognize that that's the situation that we live in. And we need to, again, be discerning. In 2025, the reality you believe in is the reality you're going to experience, full stop. If you believe that you should be terrified all the time, if you believe that everything is a reason to be angry, blah, 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 you are going to feel that in your body experientially, and you are going to see it reflected to you through cognitive bias at every turn. For every single thing anybody in this world believes to be true, you can go out and find evidence for it, differing kind of scales of evidence. Some of it is better than others, but But it's important to know that. And that's why we get to a space where people live in different realities and can't really come together in the same space. But as part of living in that context is you can only live in fight or flight for so long before that also gets run out and exhausted. So I see, and this is also partly why my focus for the next year is really heavily going to be these seasons of the Feral Self-Care Collective. And that's really what I'm going to put I think a lot of my focus in for the next year is really building and creating this, because I want to be a part of the solution, not a part of the problem, is that people are going to start to rebound toward joy. So I want you to reflect on the fact, say, for example, the hippie movement, say the psychedelic movement around the same time, anti-war movements, things like that. These are things that happen reactionary based on what's happening in the world. So we have these pendulum swings, and sometimes they go a little too far and they need to come back the other way. It's very, very, very hard for us to find middle ground as human beings if we are not in a state of nervous system regulation. And I would say that right now, given the accessibility of information at all hours of the day from everywhere on earth, given the rise of AI and fake information, and like the fact that, are we getting to a point where we can't even trust our senses, is leading to a place where I think a lot of people are going to get activated to move again back towards their own life, back towards joy, etc. Because you can only be in a state of like heightened arousal for so fucking long before you eventually either collapse and like die or whatever, or you just go, you know what, all these things I can't fix, I cannot fix them like this. So I need to come back here and figure out what I need to do to ground and center myself. On the topic of AI, that's something else that I kind of saw in the collective energy for 2025. AI is going to continue to divide, trigger, activate people in a very serious, very heavy way. I see the things that are going to be happening. Again, this is partly like that tech prediction. I think things are going to happen to such an extent that we're going to turn around one day and be like, what the fuck was that? It's almost like a boom, an explosion, a something. Unfortunately, throughout human history, especially with technologies, things come, they go, they shift, they change, they evolve over time. We as human beings have this really amazing way of just releasing things and then worrying about the consequences later. I think the internet is a great example of that. And I think we're going to see a lot more of that with AI. Again, people are going to have to be more discerning than ever. And I think that I feel like I'm saying the same thing over and over again. I should just stop. But I think that it's going to lead people to get back into their own lives. What can I experience? Can I hug my partner and know that that's real and that's true? Is that helping my nervous system? Can I really be nice to the people in my life, raise my children well, try and do good, maybe try and be an activist, not online, but maybe, with my government, maybe we're trying to build local communities, things like that. This is kind of the reactionary state that I see us coming back to. We need to return from a place of fear, hypothetical, false realities, illusions, etc. We need to, no matter where you stand on any fucking issue, and this is why all of my spaces are not political, and some people get really upset about me for that, and they try and, insist that I say where I stand on everything, which is just like so ridiculous to me. But the reason why I do that is because I don't believe that good change happens from people being in a state of dysregulation, from people being in a state of fearfulness or learned helplessness. I think it happens from being grounded in your power, where you can tell where the best course of action is going to be. I think it comes from being in a place where you have a little bit of optimism, joy, hope, whatever, to see past the problems that are happening now and see past those problems and see into the unlimited potential of what could be. And I think that's really what we need to do. So if you are somebody who is familiar with magic, I literally just spilled that all over myself. Love it. If you're somebody that believes in magic, you might be familiar with the concept of an egregore. So this is kind of like a thought form that emerges from our attention, from our consciousness, etc. Right? And so I think that we are creating these thought forms, but we can also take that energy and we can turn it into the things that we want to see more of in the world. We can turn it into the, again, being the change we want to see. I've missed some comments. Whoops. People can tell where you stand by your actions. It doesn't have to be said. Yes, that's also why if somebody yells at you to say like, oh, can you, like one of the craziest things that happened over the last year, and I don't know if I should say this or not, is people saying, where do you stand on, like murdering or killing people or bombing people or war or things like, where do I stand? My brother in Christ, I fucking assume that everybody is against that shit unless stated otherwise. Why are we having to go out here and fucking, well, I'm going to go prove myself? Absolutely fucking not. Be a good person, live a good life, be open to change, be open to re-examining your belief systems, etc., etc. That's just how it goes, right? Like somebody doesn't get to just tell you that this is reality and then you have to buy into it. A million times a day, somebody is going to try and force you into their reality. They're going to try and tell you who you are. I mean, God, this happens to us since we're children, right? People try and tell you who you are. Just because somebody has said that you are XYZ doesn't make it fucking true, right? Like nobody gets to be a better expert. The best way that you can kind of equip yourself to be the best person that you can be and to really like kind of armor yourself against that is to really be constantly exploring your values, constantly exploring your worldview, constantly being open to being wrong. Am I wrong about this? Is my belief about this? Maybe I haven't considered all the information. So it's important as part of evolution to be going through that process on an ongoing basis. I feel like I had so much more to say about this, but I always get nervous when I get onto these. But I will say, if you are interested in maybe really focusing on that integration, really trying to shift the way that you view life, really trying to shift your perspective, I would highly recommend joining. So on January 20th, which is Blue Monday, and I've been planning this out for so long. This is one of the coolest things I think I've ever created, but I'm a bit biased because I love everything I create. But Dystopia Rising is going to be the first season of the Feral Self-Care Collective, which is going to be, it's a 3-month program. It's a 3-month group program. I've got 2 guest speakers for the first season. I've got Aidan Wachter, who I absolutely love, one of my favorite authors. I also have the Femme Genius. She's going to come and do like a world building meditation breathwork session with us. Man, I'm so fucking stoked for this. But this program is going to be 3 months of weekly stuff to get you back out of your head, out of the doom, out of the chaos, and back into your body, back into your life. So the first month is called the Uprising. This is all about joyful rebellion, play through creation, etc., etc. There is, so the first week we are going to get together live. We're going to do like a rebellious manifesto. I'm fucking stoked for that. We're going to craft our blueprint, crafting our blueprint for joy and making a commitment to living in joy, living in expansion. Second week is going to be becoming the chaos. I'm going to have pre-recorded videos for week 2 that are going to be all about grounding, centering, stabilizing, moving your energy and why that matters in this moment right now. Week 3 is play as a weapon of mass creation. We're going to do a live session together that is going to be a painting session. So if you've seen my advertisements for this, then you're going to have seen that there's like a materials list, because this is going to be heavily focused on like therapeutic art practices, transmuting through creation, that sort of thing, and then grounding and centering. So the reason I did it that way was to get through the tail end of the winter blues that a lot of us experience. So when it comes to feral self-care, for example, the spring season is probably going to be a lot more about being outside, herbalism, that sort of thing, whereas this one's very digging into your shadows and therapeutic art approaches. So week 4, creative rebellion. So this is going to be, and these are all going to build on each other. So each week we're going to have like challenges. It's highly participative. Is that a fucking word? I don't even know if that's a word. Participation is going to be key. You can sign up in my bio. It should be like the first thing up there. Also in my broadcast channel. If you're not on my broadcast channel, it's there. So month 2 is going to be shadow alchemy. So I originally had this idea. I was like, I really want to do a membership program, or seasonal program that is about living in joy, optimism, positivity, play, creation, all of that. And the reason why I wanted to do that is because, again, in 2025, I see this being about integration, because a lot of us read the books and we buy the courses and we do the thing, but we don't actually go and practice the fucking things. If you want to shift your mindset, you want to shift your life, you have to immerse yourself in it, right? This is the same mechanism why doom scrolling is going to have the opposite effect, right? When we immerse ourselves in something, that becomes a very large part of our reality. So I wanted to create something where people could immerse themselves in it. Now, doing positivity, I was like, maybe I'll do a light stream and a shadow stream, but you really don't get one without the other. A lot of what prevents us from accessing our light, accessing positivity, optimism, whatever, is the shadow, the collective shadow, which we see every fucking day, and then our individual shadow and the places where those intersect. So month 2 is about shadow alchemy. So we're in week 5, we'll do introduction to the shadow. Week 6, we're going to do interoception. So this is identifying emotions in your body. So if you're somebody who has struggles with energy work, or you struggle with moving energy, moving that sort of stuff through your body, that's going to be covered in week 6 of this program. Week 7 is the art of destruction. We're going to take some shadow stuff, and then we are going to take what we create, we are going to destroy it to create art from it. I'm fucking stoked for that one. And there's going to be a challenge there. So you're going to be asked to present yours to the group. Week 8 is going to be so exciting because we're going to have Aidan Wachter there, and he is going to be doing a 90-minute session with us on hypersigils. So I'm very excited about this. If you understand what hypersigils are, it's kind of, how do you explain it? It's sort of like a longer term form of manifestation. So instead of doing one symbol as your hypersigil, it's more of an ongoing work of art. Month 3 is going to be about world building. So how can we become the change we want to see reflected in the world? Week 9 is conscious co-creating. So this is going to be a live session where we're going to try and tap into that Maharishi effect. We're going to do a group meditation on world building and a breathwork session that is going to be hosted by Liz Zamorsky of the Femme Genius. Fuck, I'm excited about that because I love her. Then we're going to do vision crafting in week 10, and that's going to be a collaborative art project, which I'm very excited for. Week 11 is a challenge. It's called Bombing for Hope, and this is where we are going to take our hope, positivity, imagination, creation, rebellious joy efforts, and we are going to take it out into the community. Very excited about that one. And then week 12 is our goodbye. So this is 3 months of weekly stuff. Week 12 is the joy frequency, and this is where we're going to have a closing ritual and session. It's going to be live, and it's going to have our goodbyes. So that is what's going on. Now I'm going to look back at the comments. If you have any, let me know. Are you doing one each season? I signed up for a winter group already and was sad to miss this one. So I'm going to be running this program seasonally, but each season is going to be different. So this season, like I said, is going to be very heavily focused on art, kind of creative art therapy. And this theme right here, spring's theme, is going to be different. Then there will be, so I'm going to have, again, this is going to be my focus for the next year, but each season is going to be different with different activities, different guest speakers, different presentations, different content from me, by me, and it's all going to be determined both by the collective energy, which Dystopia Rising is exactly what I saw as being needed in this moment, which is why I'm doing that one first, although they'll all have the same thread of like positivity, optimism, hope, rebellious play and creativity. So that's the first one I'm anticipating, because it is a feral self-care thing. That when the weather changes, there's going to be a lot more kind of outside stuff, connecting with nature stuff in other seasons. So it is going to be something that is going to be for example, there will be a winter season next year. Hopefully, if this is all successful, there'll be a winter season next year, but it will not be the same as this season. So if you want to not miss the specific cohort of what's happening in each season, then you'll have to come and be in that season. This makes it a little bit easier for me as a facilitator, not having people come and go like a monthly membership would be. I'm able to actually take people from point A to point B in a coherent way with a community that is, again, doesn't have people coming and going. But then if somebody say they want the winter season, but they don't want the spring season, then they can dip in and out as they choose. This is definitely going to be my passion project for the next year. I'll still be doing other stuff as well. But like, when I really sat and reflected on like what I want the impact of my work to be in the world, I just want people to feel okay. I spent so much of my life not feeling okay. I spent so much of my life dissociated, disembodied, not grounded, not in my power, feeling helplessness. I was very extremely mentally ill, as some of you that know my backstory was. And that really didn't lead to anything in my life becoming better. That didn't lead to my worldview becoming better. So this is the sort of thing that I kind of am willing to be out there and have people like make whatever inferences they want to make about me or call me toxic for wanting to orient towards a positive or whatever. But I lived with doom and despair choking me in my throat for most of my life. So again, that reality does not have to be my reality. I can say that having experienced both, this is much better. And I feel like this is much more effective for creating the kind of change that I want to see in the world. So if you want to join that, check the link in my bio. It's going to be so fucking fun, you guys. I can't believe it. And the inaugural season and the guests that I got for this season, I'm like, oh, you guys, I'm just so excited about this. So I hope to see you all there in that group. I love you all, and I hope you got something from this. Sorry it got so long, but you guys take care.